just because it feels like that moment in The Matrix when Keanu Reeves plugs that thing into his neck and then he's like,
I know Kung Fu.
Like that's
a real superpower.
Yes, that's what a PM feels like when you vibe code your first feature. And as soon as you have that experience of power, then you're like, okay, I'm going to invest. I'm going to learn this stuff. And it makes me really excited for the future of creativity. I think we often talk about slop and some of the downsides of AI-generated stuff. But when you put these tools in the hands of someone who loves to create, they can just do incredible things.
This is Product in Practice, where big ideas meet hands-on execution. I'm Axel Surya, and every episode, I bring you into the room with product leaders shaping the future. We explore big trends changing our industry right now, and we break them into actionable workflows you can use today. No fluff, just real conversations, real demos, real results. Let's get started. Today, I have the pleasure of welcoming Laura Burkhauser, VP of Product at Descript. Laura's led product teams at Twitter, Rent the Runway, and Le Tote, and now she's building AI-powered tools that are making video editing as simple as writing. She's best known for leading the launch of Underlord, Descript AI co-editor, and for pushing the boundaries of how creators can go from idea to publish in record time. Laura, welcome to Product in Practice.
Thanks so much for having me, Axel.
I had this conversation with you a few weeks back, and I was thinking two things. First, wow, what an incredible amount of energy from this person on the call. And this,
my second cup of coffee was kicking in.
Exactly. And then the second thing was, it doesn't happen often that I meet somebody who is as excited as I am about Descript. So I was like, wow. I love the product. I love the energy I'm getting from this person. I just need this person on the show. So thanks for coming.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And thank you for loving Descript.
Tell us a little bit about you. Who's Laura? What are you up to? And what are you doing at Descript?
Yeah, well, I've been in product management for over a decade now. And I'm one of those product managers that can kind of only work on a product that I myself use and love and am obsessed with. And so, every once in a while, I'll get an email from a recruiter that's like, oh, AI is really like disrupting construction sites. And I'm like, I'm sure that's interesting to someone, but I can't get into it. I need to work on products that I love. And so the first couple of startups that I worked with were in fashion subscription services, which I wore designer clothes for, 5 to 8 years of my life, and it was fantastic.
That's not bad at all.
No, not at all. Then I was at Twitter for 3 years, and I was extremely online, like so many of us were during that time, still kind of detoxing from that. After I left Twitter, I was wondering what my next step would be. And whenever you're sort of like wandering through the desert, wondering what comes next in your life in San Francisco, you're actually legally required to start a podcast. And so I did. And as I went to go edit that podcast, I found this software called Descript, where you could edit a video or a podcast just like a doc. And there were so many wonderful and delightful parts about like using the product that I just thought, this is why I got into tech, to build stuff like this. And I basically cold called them and was like, are you hiring product people? I would love to do product
Wow.
for Descript. And yeah, they gave me a job.
That's brilliant. What an amazing story. I'm just going to use this opportunity here to talk a little bit about my experience with Descript. So I've been doing podcasting for a while. And one day, a friend of mine in France sent me a message and he goes, hey, have you tried this thing? Because he knew, I was using some other piece of software to like do the editing. It's basically line editing. And we all know like an hour of recording kind of translates to like 3 to 4 hours of post work.
Yeah, that's if you're good.
Yeah, so he was like, hey, have you tried this Descript thing? I was like, no idea what you're talking about. And there's so many tools around us.
Yes,
I'm like, am I going to invest in even giving this a try? I was like, okay, I looked at the teaser video, watched a couple of videos on YouTube. I'm like, I'm going to try this. I tried it and instantly became this like power user. Another friend of mine started a podcast and I told them, listen, do not think about this twice. Just like use Descript. You got to trust me on this. And once in a while, he will send me a message, just like we're catching up, and he'll tell me how he's doing. And I'll always ask, how are things on the content side? And he will always thank me for introducing him to Descript. He just loves it. So shout out to Pierre if you're listening to this podcast.
Yeah, give me product feedback. I'm here for you.
Pierre is used to be a chief product officer, so he'll give you feedback.
Yes,
for sure.
get on a call.
So part of why we're on this show is there's this big AI shift happening in the industry right now, right? So I speak to a lot of product leaders every day in our customer base, and a lot of them don't necessarily have a plan for how they deal with everything that's happening through AI in their craft. Like AI is really impacting how we build products. I'm really interested to understand, how did you think about this? So was there a flipping moment where you were like, okay, got to get on this AI thing? And then as a product leader, how did you think about bringing this into the team? Because there's like this big idea of AI fluency. Like, how did you think about raising that level of fluency in your organization?
This is a great question, because what I would so we actually like talk about a like tech acceptance scale at Descript, where you kind of have like hostile, and then skeptical, and then converted, and then rewired. Where hostile is sort of, obvious. Like,
is this for the customers or in general? Is this for your customers, for your user base, or?
We actually talk about it as a company.
Oh, right. Okay.
For the people at Descript. Yeah. Because a lot of us are creative, and you sort of have like some people who were like ready to get a Neuralink and like just strap themselves into the future. And then other people who are more, old school, and proudly so. So anyways, we talk about this tech acceptance skill, but I think it applies for customers too. And I think we all probably know people who are AI hostile. There aren't a lot of people, there are no people like that at Descript. We are like, from the very beginning, we were powered by AI. Text-based editing is AI powered before you kind of slapped AI powered on your website.
Yep.
But we certainly probably all know people who are AI hostile. And then there's like kind of skeptical. A lot of these people are people who've been in the business for a while, and they've been through a lot of hype cycles, and they're like, I'm interested, but is this just another one of these things?
Kind of like disillusioned.
Mm-hmm. And then I think where a lot of people actually are with AI right now is they're converted, but they aren't rewired. What this means is like they've kind of accepted, like, okay, AI is here, it's real, it's going to change things. I know it's going to change things. Should I be doing more to, like, I believe it, but I'm not living it yet. And then there's like fully rewired. And what Andrew, my boss, like the example he uses is buying paper towels off of Amazon, where it's like at some point he just started using Amazon to buy a carton of tissues or something like that. And that's when he really got rewired and stopped kind of going to the store. And we're all kind of on different journeys with different kinds of technology. But so I'd say like I was converted to AI before I came to Descript. Descript is probably the experience that converted me, where I was like, oh my gosh, wow, AI can really change a workflow, specifically this podcasting workflow that I never wanted to kind of learn. But I would say that I had then a true flipping experience earlier this year, and it came because of the Anthropic kind of Claude 4 family of products. Yep. And I had tried Cursor before. I had tried it like last fall.
Just for people listening to us, what is Cursor?
Cursor is it's the vibe coding tool, I would say. It's basically what makes Cursor special and what makes it different than like some of the prototyping tools that you might be more familiar with, is that it actually like hooks into your code base, so you can code on top of whatever your product is.
And it gets the context of what you're trying to do.
Exactly. And so it's not like you're starting from nothing and you're saying like, build me this app based on nothing. It's like built on top of your
data. And then
data,
you're super disappointed because it knows nothing about what you're
exactly.
It
like spits out some prototypes that like looks like garbage. And you're like, what? I feel like I'm being gaslit. What's amazing about Cursor is that it has all of the context of your database. It has the context of your like design system. And so you can really build real things. You can build real things in it. Or at least that's what people told me last fall, right? That's when vibe coding, I don't even think we called it vibe coding at the time, but that's when people started.
The term was coined I feel like the term was coined very quickly after people realized this was a thing.
Yeah.
Like everything else in AI, this stuff is happening so fast.
Yeah, and I tried it, and I was like, it's not there yet. Like I kind of see the promise, but I have to spend so much time talking to this thing to get it to do something so stupid. I think I was literally like, I'll start with something easy, like changing an icon. And it just took me an hour. And I was like, there's no way that this is going to make me faster. And then I tried again. And it happened to be after kind of the Claude 4 stuff came out and got put into Cursor. And I one-shotted an undo button in production that got shipped. And
Wow.
that, to me, was like getting a superpower. And the reason why I say this is I think that the FOMO is real. Anyone who spends time on like Twitter or LinkedIn, so I used to be in consulting, and one of the things that we talked about with change management is like we talk about the burning platform and the beach. And the burning platform is like the reason why you have to change. Change is uncomfortable. No one wants to change. You have to change because you're on a burning platform. You can't stay on the platform, right? And then the beach is like the fantasy. That's like the motivation, the carrot for why you should do all of this work. And I think that like it's very easy to feel the burning platform right now out there in the environment. People are talking about a permanent underclass, right? Like it's like very hyperbolic.
Yes. And I think it's also, I don't know that people talk about this a lot in tech, but AI is not tech exclusive. It's like this societal thing that's happening because there's like so many ramifications. Like you're mentioning, a lot of people talk about inclusion, like around AI, like who has access to AI, who doesn't have access to AI, who can actually afford to pay for these tools and things like that. But going back to what you're saying, I can relate to what you're saying about the burning platform because I used to work in a very large bank and we always talk about the legacy spaghetti, which is basically like all of these like old systems and mainframes and these custom API connections that were, I'm saying API, most of them weren't, but you know what I mean? Like all this custom work and basically plumbing to get all of this stuff to work together. And a lot of these consulting companies came in and told us, this is the path to something that looks better, to, a easier, more manageable solution. So totally get where you're coming from. When you look at AI and you're converted, I can tell. You talked about this flipping moment of Cursor and, Claude being available and you shipping something to production.
Right.
When you look back at this moment, do you think you would have done anything differently, or like, could there have been something that would have unlocked this for you earlier? The reason I'm asking this is there's a lot of people probably listening to this show thinking, I'm kind of still on the fence about this AI thing. Like, what would your message be to them?
So that's like, I think that you need to get out of the amygdala space, get out of the fear space where you're just repeating to yourself, like, I have to adapt or be left behind, because I think that's going to lead you to throw spaghetti at the wall and do like fairly unstrategic things to show that you're quote unquote doing AI and you're motivated by fear. And I think like no one does very smart things when they're motivated by fear. Like what I would suggest that people do is find their beach, find the thing that makes them very excited about this stuff. For me, and I think for a lot of product managers, and so this is, I'll tell you, like as soon as I had this experience, I made everyone on my team get Cursor and set up their environments on their local machines. And there was a little bit of resistance. Like, is this really what like using AI looks like for product managers? And like, I think that's a smart question. But before before we talk about that question, I want everyone to vibe code a prototype of something that they've been wanting to see in the product and haven't been able to like justify the resources for. Just try it. And like, we're all going to sit here and set up our environments. By the way, my head of engineering set up a GPT in ChatGPT where you can just chat to set up your environment. You basically are like, hi, I'm a dum-dum. I don't know anything about computers. How do I set up my environment? And it just talks to you and walks you through it step by step by step. This is the future we're living in. So we all set up our environments and everyone vibe coded something. And as soon as a designer is able to do VQA by themselves on a feature, as soon as like a product manager is able to like prototype something that they haven't been able to get the time of day on from their team for months, they are so bought in. Even if it's not the most strategic way to use AI for a product manager, just because it feels like that moment in The Matrix when Keanu Reeves like plugs that thing into his neck and then he's like, I know Kung Fu. Like that's what a PM...
A real superpower.
Yes. And that's what a PM feels like when you vibe code your first feature. And as soon as you have that experience of power, then you're like, okay, I'm going to invest. I'm going to learn this stuff. Like, it's going to be hard, but it's worth it for me because I see the future now. I can squint.
For people who might be thinking we're drinking too much of the Kool-Aid here, how does this translate to customer value, right? So sure, we're tech people, we're product people, we're very familiar with the tools. And if I look at myself as an example, it's just like I'm trying a lot of these tools. Sometimes I'm paying for these tools just like to figure out whether there's like going to be value out of it. Sometimes I churn because after 2 weeks, I'm like, I'm not using this. You know what I mean? Like,
yes.
So one of the ways I think we can really measure the impact that AI adoption of AI tools actually helping our product management workflows is to see at the end of the value chain, how does that translate into customer value, right? What have you observed from using AI tools at Descript? How does that translate to customer value?
Yeah, so I mean, we have a KR that we are going to double engineering output by the end of the year as measured through linear projects, or as measured through engineering projects. And I think that, okay, how? And I think, so how is EPD, engineering, product, and design, going to become twice as efficient by the end of the year? Obviously, some of that is within engineering, using tools like Claude Code and Cursor to do the first pass at a lot of our projects. But then in product and design, what does that mean? And so after we kind of had the beach moment, right? Like, get people really invested in AI, help people understand just how transformative this can be. Then we got into my favorite tool, the 2x2. And I asked everyone, like, fill in this sentence. I wish I could spend less time doing blank so that I could spend more time doing blank. And if you're a product manager, I want you to just like take a second and write down what your sentence is. And what I'll tell you is everyone says so that I can spend more time doing things that are so much better for customers. Things like talking to customers, or things like thinking strategically, things like thinking about the long term, things that when you read what people want to be spending more time doing, it's stuff that self-evidently would just be so good for our customers and for Descript. And when you look at the things that they want to spend less time doing, you're like, oh my God, yes. And so then we took all of those things that people want to spend less time doing, and we said, all right, what of this is easy to kind of automate or accelerate with AI? And for the stuff that people want to spend more time doing, like, what is best amplified or taken to the next level through AI? And out of that, we came up with our roadmap for what we wanted, where we wanted to get our 2x efficiencies and our quality increases because of AI. And that became like our H2 roadmap for AI automation.
You're clearly being very intentional about this, right? And it requires time from people, like figuring out like how are you going to bring the team together and get them to do this exercise and look through the results and plan for the changes you might want to do organizationally, find vendors, for these AI tools and all that stuff. Like, how did you manage this? It kind of sounds like at the scale of Descript, this might have happened quite organically, but how did it happen, and how would you recommend others do this?
Well, I do think that it starts at the top. And so I think that people at bigger companies should manage up to try to get a formal KR or commitment at a company level that this is important. Mm-hmm. And I don't think it should be too hard to get your org leaders or the executives at your organization to prioritize this. But I think, like, yes, whenever you're doing something the old way, you're probably scraping by and you've been getting the work done. And I think that, again, you need that burning platform. And I think that's why you need commitment that it's okay to spend time doing this kind of thing. And we have a big, ambitious goal of like 2xing EPD output by the end of the year that sort of forces you to realize, like, 10% here or there, talking to ChatGPT as a way of making the PRD a little faster is not going to get us to twice as many projects in a quarter. There need to be fundamental changes. And so it is worth it for us I'm going to go to Chicago with my team next week, and we're going to do like our second hackathon, where now I have like another, it's so fun to work for me. I have another little like slide that I could show you that's like, first you simulate, then you automate, then you delegate, where it's like when you're thinking about how to take those things you don't like doing and do them faster with AI, first I would say like, don't start by buying a tool. Don't start with vendors. Start by like, we're PMs. We know this. You start with an MVP. You start by like verifying the workflow is a good one. And so, and that's what I'll show you in the demo is like, we've been on the simulate. So we had all of these like nominated workflows where we're like, okay, I think we can probably get a lot of value out of automating this.
Who is we? Is this you, part of the team?
Me and my product team.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. And so this is something we talk about pretty much weekly. It's like something that we check in about.
So is AI, just to clarify, is AI like one of the topics you bring at, what is it? Is it a product review? Is it like a team meeting?
At our weekly team meeting. Yeah. And then I also have a fun Friday morning vibe coding show and tell where like I find that so much of this stuff, by the way, one of the things that you said is, I think you called me something like an expert. And I want to say like, we're in a fun time where there aren't a lot of experts, actually. I don't know that I would call myself that, but I think that I'm an early experimenter. And I think like if I could tell people one thing, it's like, don't wait to get a worksheet that tells you exactly how to do this stuff. We're all making it up right now.
Yeah.
And like, if you want to be on the faster side of things, like just start making it up. Like no one knows exactly the right way to do stuff right now. And that's scary for some people. For me, it's extremely exciting. I'm one of these people that I'm less interested in solving a problem if you know exactly how to solve it. But so anyways, so on Friday, we've been having these like weekly vibe coding show and tells. And that's really great because like we're learning from each other. So it's not like I know all of the answers and my team just needs to like listen to me. I show up to, the weekly vibe code and I'm hearing how one of my PMs is instead of writing a PRD and then doing design specs and then like engineering gets started, they're actually engineering, product, and design are spending 3 hours every Friday afternoon working through like a sub part of their backlog and just talking their way, iterating their way with prototypes into production. And okay, that's like an interesting hypothesis for how EPD might change going forward, where it's much more synchronous and like prototype, ship. But we don't know, right?
Yeah. You talked a lot about doubling the output you get from the EPD team, which I think is great. And that speaks to velocity. I'm really curious about quality. Like, all well and great. Like, we're going to ship like, twice what we shipped last time. But how are you managing the level of quality of things you're shipping out there? The reason I'm also asking is, having been a Descript user for like the past, I don't know, maybe 3 years now, maybe more, there's always, to me, has been this consistent quality that I now expect from Descript. Like, how are you managing that?
I mean, I think that we haven't changed our bar for quality at all. And what we aren't doing, and I'm curious if anyone is, this is the kind of thing where it's like, who knows what the right answer is? But what we're not doing is like shipping code that we don't understand just because it appears to work in production, right? Or in staging. Like, I think that we have the same rigorous code review processes that we've always had. And when I talk about vibe coding, like, it's true that for the undo button, which changed like a few lines of code that I could go and check, and then I had 2 reviewers like check in on, sometimes the PM or the designer is opening the PR. But most times it's still engineers. It's still reviewed by 1 or 2 engineers, and we still have the same QA process. Although, like, we're able to speed that up. But I'd say like we haven't changed our quality bar at all in terms of what we ship.
Yeah. So you're being very conscious about verifying, double checking, triple checking what is being output from this like AI generated code or.
Absolutely. And we're making sure that the AI generated code is built the way that we would want to build it, right? That it's not built, it's not a house of cards.
Yeah.
That it's like a steady foundation that you can build on top of. And Descript is also very lucky. Like, we're entirely web-based, which like makes things easier. And, we don't have like 13 years of tech debt or whatever. So it's, different companies are in different places to be able to do this kind of stuff.
And also, something else I wanted to ask you, especially in the field of audio and video, you've had this audio generation feature for a while, which I think is amazing. With all the AI capabilities now, how do you think about, being more responsible when it comes to like, how are you using generative capabilities, right? Like you can synthesize people's voices and create videos from scratch using, whatever model is out there that's probably been trained on publicly available data. How do you think about this from your product strategy perspective?
Yeah, you touched on a few things there. So just so that people know, like Descript is like one of the features we have is you've probably, I don't know how, I'm sure that the editing in this podcast is going to make me sound like I was 100% intelligible and a genius the entire time.
Of course.
But, truth be told, I've made a few flubs. And in Descript, what you can do is, without needing to re-record, change the word that I said to make it the word that I meant to say, and actually like update my lips so it looks like I said the thing that I wanted to say from the very beginning.
Magic.
Which is magic in the editing studio. It's great. They don't need to use Scotch tape to make it look like I was saying something halfway decent. But obviously you can imagine abuse vectors there. Yep. And at Descript, like what we strive to do is if your use case is a bad actor use case, we're not going to be the platform that you choose. It is going to be much harder to use us for nefarious purposes than it is going to be to use other tools. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of the standard that we hold ourselves to.
If you think about a PM that's starting in the craft right now, I like to think there's like two ways to look at it, right? Somebody joining the craft now doesn't have necessarily a history about doing product without AI. But any advice you would give them, because like I can't stop myself thinking about like all the experiences that I've had in the past have given me these skills that I have now in product, right? If I had started now in this like AI forward world, I would probably have developed another skill set or leaned way more into AI, right? But a lot of stuff that I learned, and this goes back to a conversation I had with a VP of product in France, where he told me like the craft of product management is really a craft. It's like craftsmanship. Like he gave me this parallel. If you think about the blacksmiths in Japan, where they've been like basically refining this craft over centuries, right? Another parallel is like how we do this in product, and we go from company to company and we really think about, how to work on our intuition, how to work on our empathy when we're in customer interviews, listening skills, how do we derive insights from conversations that we've had, how do we communicate these insights to, for example, a leadership team or an engineering team, et cetera, et cetera. Somebody starting today in product management, their perception of the craft might be very, very different to what you and I might have experienced in the past. Like, what advice would you give them?
I think that while the skills are different, my advice to people earlier in their career is the same, which is like, earn your way into the room where context is shared. I've been talking about context, it's funny, like I've been talking about context in the human world for like decades now. But now, of course, when we hear the word context, we think about context engineering and the context that we give, ChatGPT or Cursor to be able to like do to execute well. But context is currency at organizations. And what you're doing as a junior person at an organization is providing value to people who have context so that you can be in the room where the context is shared. And the way that you used to, so when I started in consulting, the way that you provided value to earn your way into the room was being really good at making pretty slides. So if you could just like make great slides for your partner or take really good meeting notes, you would be invited into the room where you could learn from these master craftspeople what the craft of a customer conversation looks like, or what the craft of like strategy construction looks like. Meanwhile, you're taking notes and making slides, right? Taking notes and making slides is not what the new generation of junior employees is going to do, because of course we have a bunch of AI note takers and AI slide makers. So that's not where your value is going to be. But then again, you are like graduating into an AI native context in a way that people 10 or 20 years older than you are not. The same way that I was building pretty slides in a way that people 20 years older than me couldn't build pretty slides. They didn't grow up making MySpace pages and learning how to make things just look absolutely perfect.
Oh God, MySpace.
Oh no, I dated myself. Anyways, so what I would say is like, understand the currency that you have that gets you in the room to become the context holder. Because, you know, more and more, the person who has the context is the person who is going to be able to like craft the strategy and be the and be the builder. And that's what you want to do in your career.
I loved this conversation, and it's not over. But one thing I will have to say is you've talked a lot about how you're doing this at Descript as a company, talking about, you know, elevating the AI fluency in the company, talking about how you've changed your practices in the engineering and product and design group. It all sounds great and fascinating. I'd really actually love to see how you're doing this, right? So part of this show is we want to get hands-on, and we want to actually see how somebody like you, Laura, would actually use AI tools to, you know, accelerate the workflows or provide more value to the customer. How does that sound?
Sounds great. Love to do it.
Okay, let's do it. So a big part of product and practice is the practice part. And I wanted to see how Laura actually uses AI day to day in her workflows as a product leader, and how does that actually materialize. So Laura.
Okay, I'm excited to show you a little bit about how I've been simulating the workflows that I'm hoping to automate now over the next month with my team. And specifically, I've been looking at least my least favorite part in the product life cycle, and that is post-launch.
Okay.
I am a little bit of that toxic PM that like is so excited about launch.
Let's move to the next thing.
Yes, and then yes, as soon as I cross that finish line, I'm like, what is the next product that I will start? And there's a lot of stuff we need to do post-launch.
You know what? I love that you chose this specifically also, because not a lot of people talk about go-to-market or distribution, or, you know, once the feature has shipped, like it's only the beginning. There's a lot of work that needs to happen. So super excited for what you have to show us today.
Yeah. So a lot of stuff from post-launch came up in our 2x2 of things that I wish I could do less of so I could spend more time doing other things.
Okay.
And some of the stuff that came up was writing progress reports about how feature launches are going, writing release notes or change logs, writing help center updates, or providing the documentation to the people who will write help-centered updates. Yeah. Any kind of like social posts, or like, and I find this in podcasting too. If you talk to podcasters and ask them what their least favorite part is, they're like marketing it, and dashboard creation. So these are all things PMs have to do. Many of us don't like to do them. Ripe for automation.
Yeah. So and also PMM teams, right? So there's a lot of product marketers out there who are also trying to understand how they can make the most out of the AI-powered tools available today. So I think that's also great for them.
Yeah, and so the two tools that the tools that I'm using here, just to be clear, are Notion, and I'm only using that. Not using any AI features there. I'm just using that as the holder of a lot of context at our company, lives in Notion. And then the only AI product that I'm using is Cursor, and this is sort of part of my general hypothesis around how you should become savvy about AI, which is like, don't start by buying 50 tools and learning 50 different tools. Like, start with a couple of really powerful ones and use those to identify where you want to buy versus build. So I'm using Cursor because Cursor has ground truth for the post-launch experience, in that, like, we all know as product people, when you write that PRD, you write the way that you think the product is going to work, and you think all the features that are going to get shipped. And then something with some similarity to that PRD actually gets shipped. And I know like at Twitter, like a bigger organization I was part of, there were like all of these PRD update processes I had to follow where it's like, please document every decision made between now and launch so that we can like have ground truth for how the feature works. But ground truth for how the feature works already exists. And do you know where it exists? In the code.
Correct.
And do you know who has access to the code? The beautiful agent that lives inside of Cursor. And so you can actually use Cursor to do. This is like an off-label use of Cursor. I love off-label uses of AI. You can use Cursor to do things like generate your progress reports, generate your release notes, your help center updates, your social posts. And I'm working on dashboard creation, but I'll be honest with you, I have not gotten as far in simulation of that as I want to.
I mean, this already sounds like a lot of ground to cover anyway, so I'm just excited for us to dive in.
Yeah, exactly. So let's see. I'm going to start by just whenever I work with AI, I like to make sure we're talking about the same thing because that prevents hallucination. So if I just say like, hey, let's talk about the generative video through the agent feature, and I leave it at that, maybe it's going to like know what I'm talking about. Or maybe it's going to be like, okay, I don't know what you're talking about, but I'm going to pretend. And that's where you can really go off kilter. So I'm saying like, I'm going to provide the right PRs for context. And I just copied and pasted those from GitHub.
So just for context, what are we doing in this flow and what are you expecting the result will be?
So with this prompt, all that I'm doing is trying to make sure that Cursor and I are talking about the same feature so that then all of the follow-on things that I ask it to do about that feature are going to be correct and based on what's really happening.
You're basically setting the context, right?
Exactly. Okay. And I always do this when I'm vibe coding too. I'll say like, okay, I want to add a button in the systems menu bar. Like, here's a screenshot of it. What can you tell me about this code? To just like make sure that it's like, great, okay, we're talking about the same systems menu bar. Now let's talk about what I want to build. And you can see that it's showing me this. So it's saying like, okay, here's everything that I know basically about how generative video in the agent launches. This is something that we launched yesterday. You can now create generative video through agent Underlord in Descript.
Brilliant.
So, okay, what do I want to do now with this information? Well, I want to create a progress report. And so I can say something like, I'll use Whisperflow so that I don't have to type. By the way, like if you don't know, like Whisperflow is how I'm going to be one of these people that like doesn't know how to type in 5 years because I just talk.
It's such a cool productivity hack though.
It really is. Especially when you're...
For people who are listening to us, do you want to tell them what Whisperflow is?
Yeah, so I just click on this little button to start dictating. And it lets me, instead of typing, just kind of say whatever I'm thinking, which as more of my workflows become context dump to document. What I really want to do is just turn on a microphone and say like, here's everything that I know about the way that this feature should work. Let's work on a draft PRD based on now 5 minutes of monologuing that I'm going to do at my computer.
Correct.
Okay, so can you please write a progress update that I can put into my productivity software to let people know how this project is going and where it is? Mark it as on track, off track, or off track, and show some of the things that have happened in the past couple of weeks as I've been working on this feature. And I'll just go in and clean that up. And it doesn't know if I'm on track or off track because it doesn't have that context.
Correct.
But it provides both, and there I go. And it has like helpful links to the pull requests and everything. So it becomes, I can just copy and paste that into whatever internal systems I have that keep track of these things.
Again, because it has access to the code base, so it already has this like internal knowledge, right?
What it doesn't know is like, when did I promise to have this feature out? So that's why I need to like update whether it's on track or off track. But okay, like now let's talk about release notes. So one of the things I can do is actually like we have this changelog guide where we have these things that we think should always be mentioned when you're writing a changelog.
Yep.
And what I can do is just like update Cursor's memory to always know that. And I can say like, I'm now going to give you context for what should always be included whenever I ask you to create changelog copy. So if I ask for changelog copy, please include all of the following. And then I can just paste in that stuff from that Notion doc. Okay. And so now it's saying like, great, I've updated my memory. And now I can say, please provide changelog copy for generative video in the agent.
Which is this new feature we're just shipping.
And now I can just send that to PMM and they have everything that they need for the changelog. I didn't have to write anything.
And it took us a few seconds, really.
That's right.
Yeah.
The same thing, let's try something a little bit more fun. So this is Descript's voice. It like has all of the context for how we like to show up socially.
Okay.
Which is like
as in tone of voice for the brand.
Exactly. Okay. And I don't know if you like, are you familiar with our voice? We're a little bit irreverent is like the word that I would use.
Okay.
A little bit sarcastic.
Yeah.
I don't know what Atlassian's voice is like.
It's playful.
But my guess is that you have a document somewhere in your intranet that's
correct.
Like, this is what the Atlassian voice is.
Yeah.
So now I'm going to say, update your memory to know what I mean when I say the Descript voice. And whenever I ask you to write social posts, please do so using the Descript voice. Here is the context. And then I can just copy and paste all of that Descript voice stuff in.
This is a PMM stream, really. I can't wait for our product marketing team to see this because I think it's like such a practical workflow that, you know, it's super interesting because it also changes the collaboration between the PM and the PMM. Because the reality is sometimes what I observe is PMM is always requesting things from the PMs and the PMs like have all these like bandwidth constraints. This just fluidifies all of that, right?
Yeah, it's true. And I think like also it really solves that problem that we talked about where like the PM and the PMM, in my experience, often like have a pretty good touch base at the beginning of a project.
Yeah.
And then have like an extremely hectic touch base like right before launch.
Yeah.
And a lot can have changed by then. And this can really smooth over that, wait, what kind of moment? Okay, so you can see that it's created this memory. It knows this. And now I'm going to say, create social posts for Twitter and LinkedIn about the generative video in the agent launch. And you can see it remembers to do it in the Descript voice. And so you can imagine just a whole launch kit getting... So, okay, now let me tell you about what I plan to make over the coming weeks. And it's like, I want to make it so that there is an automatic launch kit that gets created whenever we release a feature that has all of the things that a human would generally generate as part of the launch kit, kind of pre-generated. Now, we're not yet at the place where I talk about delegating, right? Where it's like, my guess is that that PMM's going to look at this and be like, okay, this is all right, but it's not quite perfect. And they're going to want to continue to have a human in the loop. But at some point, the goal will be to fully delegate.
So just as a reminder, your framework for this is simulate, automate, and then delegate. So
That's right.
You're saying right now, this kind of works really well in the simulate and automate phases. Next up would be delegate.
Right. I would say that this is now a proof of concept.
Right.
I've simulated it and I've gotten buy-in that like this is something that we want to invest resources in automating.
Mm-hmm.
When you get to the automate phase, then the decision you need to make is like, okay, do we want to build it internally? And I think with this we do.
Mm-hmm.
Or do we want to buy a piece of software that does this? And I think for dashboard creation, I'm starting to believe that we may need to actually have, like, that might be a buy opportunity instead of a build opportunity. So that's kind of what I've been triaging. Okay, now just for fun, and because I have to show you a little bit about Underlord, I'm going to ask it.
I also remember being part of the user research for Underlord. So I had this call with somebody from the Descript team, and they basically told me, because I had signed up for research, and they said, hey, it sounds like you want to automate a bunch of things in your current workflow. So this was obviously pre-Underlord, and I didn't know that you were building anything, right? I was kind of expecting you would do something at some point. So I jumped on a call with this person at Descript, I think product manager or researcher, And they asked me a bunch of questions around my typical workflows. And then after that, they walked me through a prototype. And basically, the prototype they showed me, so there was like a mood board, like some images of what you had in mind for this co-pilot. And then I basically look at everything that I was being shown and thought, this is like a solution to everything I just mentioned in the first part of this interview. So this is great. And then a few weeks later, Underlord was there and I was just like mind blown. So well done, team.
Okay, so now I'm going to say, using everything you know about how Agent Underlord works, check out the main agent prompt and all of the sub-agent prompts. Create an effective prompt for a launch video that I could create in Descript about making generative video using Agent Underlord.
That was a bit meta.
Yeah, the snake is definitely eating its own tail. And it's just giving me this prompt. Now, normally I would spend some time I don't like this one. Let me try again.
Yeah. I mean, that's the reality of it. It's not always one shot, right? And you got to be able to go back and forth with the agents.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think like one shot is often like the promise. And so I think you need to have, when you're building an AI feature, you need to have like an exciting one shot. But I think anyone who really knows that code is a craft, that like video making is a craft, knows that like we are far from the moment when you would actually just hand the tools over.
Correct. I don't know if you've used Runway before. I used Runway the other day, which is basically a video generation model. And like all of the demos sound incredibly powerful one shot. The first thing I kind of posted in there, which was like a super simple request, like went terribly wrong. And then I started looking at the forums, and most people were saying you actually need to learn how to speak to this specific model, and gave a lot of examples of the prompts, and they were quite complex. So I mean, I just feel like this is where we are right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that well, let me get this started because it's going to take a second.
So what are we looking at?
So this is now Descript, and this is Underlord, our little buddy. And I'm actually, let me copy and paste this here so that I can, you can edit a video, create with an avatar, edit a podcast, and all of these will write a pretty good one-shot prompt for you about like that help you do whatever it is you're trying to do here. I encourage you to check out Edit a Podcast and see if it does what you like. Here you can like go off script and create your own. What I'll say is like, if you want to get started, I might suggest starting with one of these because we've just quality assured it in a way. Correct. And made sure, like to your point, how am I supposed to know the, 83 rules of how to prompt Runway well?
Yeah.
And so I think it's really helpful when AI products are like, okay, well, why don't I give you a few just like really softballs over home plate that are going to work out well. And then once you're bought in, you can go and iterate 40 times over on stuff. So, okay, I've given it this prompt. And now what is it saying? I will now write a launch video script that meets all your requirements, including on-screen directions and suggested visuals for each section. And it's telling me what its plan is. And it's now generated this script. It's talking about some of the use cases. It's added an AI voice, Kyle, who's going to be speaking. And it's asking me if I want to stop here and look over the script. And I probably would at this point. But I'm going to say, no, go ahead and... Oh, sorry. Let me try that again.
No worries.
I'm going to say, no, go ahead and add visuals. And I'm changing us over here to storyboard view because this is like the timeline. You can see the words down here, but in storyboard view, you can watch it start to create different scenes and add visuals to those scenes.
Love that. I've got this thing where, so obviously, this takes some time, but like when I look at people who are using AI like the very first time, I find that there's like these two groups of people. One group which is like super easily disappointed in the result because one of the elements is time, but then they never put in perspective the amount of time they would have taken to actually do the work to get the same level of output produced. And a lot of it, I think, is born in all of these demos we get all the time. Like we see all of these demos online in our social feeds of everything working straight away, very first time, one shot in a few seconds. And then we do try something like this, and we don't usually compare like what it would have taken us to actually do if we were to do this from scratch without AI. Huge productivity gain.
I think that's right. I think where we are right now is definitely with a lot of these tools, we're not at fully delegate. And I think while delegate is often the like goal and the vision for some people, it also isn't for everyone. So one of the things we didn't get to talk about is how AI in creative work streams is a little bit different than AI in other work streams.
Correct.
Where I think like many of us, I talked about starting with that sentence, like, I want to do less of this so I can do more of this. And for a lot of us, like, the creative work is what we want to do more of. And so the job of AI there isn't like, great, can I just like hand all this creative work to you because I don't want to think about it. Instead, it's like, hey.
It's the part you wanted to be involved in.
Yes.
Yeah.
How can you help me do things I never thought were possible? How can you help me take my creative mojo to the next level? And for me, that's what Descript has been about, where, because of this software, I go from a place where I just wouldn't be able to edit video, or I'd be able to edit a 30-second short video where what I do is I put a filter on it and add some captions. And instead, I'm able to create 30-minute, long form stuff, generating video. And I just think about like me in high school.
Yeah.
I was one of those kids with a camcorder that like would make videos for like a French project or something like that. And I think about like all those kids with camcorders, like being able to use this stuff to like build real videos now, real movies. And it makes me really excited for the future of creativity. I think we often talk about slop and some of the downsides of AI generated stuff. But when you put these tools in the hands of someone who loves to create, they can just do incredible things. Okay, so now what it's done is it's like storyboarded out stuff and decided where it thinks I should show a screen recording of how to use it and where it thinks I should add generated B-roll. And I'm going to just tell it to, so it says, do you want to preview or adjust any scenes or visuals, add custom media or generated images for the B-roll example, or move on to voiceover, captions, and export? And what I'm going to say is, first, let's add an avatar, and that will just take these camera, like it's giving me an option of like, I could record over this.
Oh, right.
Or basically I can have someone present it for me. And in this case, just, okay, that's Kyle. We've brought him to life. And I can say like, let's add generative video to the placeholders for now. What kind of style do we want to use? Let's use cinematic.
Can't wait to see what it comes out with.
And it kind of tells me what it's going to come up with. So it says, okay, so it's going to come up with video and have it magically appear, visual metaphor for words into moving pictures, create a cozy coffee shop interior with warm lighting and people working on laptops in the background, show a time lapse of vegetables growing in a rooftop garden.
Wow.
I'm sure this makes sense if you read. Yes,
Yeah.
create a cozy coffee shop interior. Okay, so that like is referring to the script. So it'll go through and create that for me. What I love about this stuff is launch videos are the kind of thing that I think has felt purely outside of the realm of the PM's abilities for forever. And I've been challenging myself to create more video this year. And it's been really exciting as the PM of a project to be able to like create the launch video myself, share some of my thinking and like bringing this feature into the world and to hear directly from customers. And it's created this really authentic way for me to communicate with our users who themselves are making videos too. So I think like PMs making video and doing more of like the launch work, it's achievable for you if it's something that you've always been interested in. And if you haven't been interested in it, I think like you may want to consider it. A lot of fun opportunities.
How do you see that it changes your relationship with, because like the lines are blurred now between like, you know, different roles, PM, designer, engineers, with everybody having access to tools like this. Has it changed your relationship with PMM? Like, how does that work?
I think that our roles are all going to change. I think that we're spending too much time focusing on like the worst possible scenario of like in 6 months, no white collar workers will have jobs. And like, I'm not there. But I think that where I am is that in 2 years, the role of the PM is going to look very different. The role of the product engineer is going to look different. The role of the product designer and the product marketer are going to be different. And I think some of what's going to happen is I've always felt that product teams, the product engineering teams like work best when that three-legged stool, everyone's a little bit in each other's lanes.
Yes.
When PMs are a little bit designy and designers are working directly with engineers. And I think like this just allows that to be even more the case. And so I think that the way that we staff projects may look different where
everybody's a builder basically.
Exactly. And so I think that as long as you're a builder at heart and as long as like you've got the customer in your sights and you love to ship value for them, like there's a place for you in the PM or the PMM like role in 2 years. But the skills, the things that you're doing may look very different. And again, like I just encourage people to get into like the excited part of that and think about the possibilities instead of hiding under their covers and thinking about like, oh God, everything's changing. There's a lot of good things that are going to change.
Thanks again, Laura. For this last segment, I've got a few questions for you. These are quick ones. So the first one is, are there any resources you've found particularly helpful when thinking about how you raise your own AI fluency and capabilities, or when you had to do it for the team?
Yes. So by resources, you mean like things that I'm reading or people I'm listening to?
Reading, listening, could be a training course, literally anything.
I think that the thing that has been the most helpful for me is this kind of goes back to my tip about like not waiting for the luminaries to give me the right answers. But it's been forming kind of my own personal peer network around this stuff. And so there are a couple of people that I've met at dinners that like I now meet with them regularly, and we just talk about how we're doing this work as org leaders. And then honestly, like
almost like a community of practice.
Exactly. Communities of practice, I think, are the best thing to do. So I have a community of practice, like a leadership community of practice, and then I've worked hard to make my team that community of practice where like an important part of our culture is us sharing the things that we're doing and creating like a Slack channel around it and really showing that this kind of behavior is rewarded. And that kind of keeps all of us on the latest and greatest stuff that's being shared around. So I think communities of practice are the way to go here.
We have an AI Slack channel internally at Atlassian as well for all the new workflows people are experimenting with. It has a lot of traction and everybody loves it. I love it. I'm always in there, sometimes sharing, but more looking at what everybody else is doing in the organization. It's actually quite inspiring.
I would say that if you are the person in your organization that is the most active or is like the most rewired, work hard to find a group that scares you a little bit, right? Because we each need to be part of a group that, where we're learning and a group where we're teaching. So I think belonging to a couple is important.
as a product leader, do you have a decision that you've made in your career that has, greatly accelerated your career, or something you've done that is was a night and day thing for you?
I mean, I think like the advice that I have two pieces of advice to accelerate your career. The first is to always make sure that you have an internal champion. If you don't have an internal champion, ask why, and you might need to leave, right? Like you need to work at an organization where at least one person who is senior to you is rooting for you specifically. So cultivate that relationship and find your champions. And then eventually you'll get to a level of seniority where it becomes difficult for you to find appropriate peers in the organization. And there it will be important for you to find like kind of the same thing I was talking about. Find your outside of the org board of directors that you can come to and talk to honestly about what's going on in your career and at your work.
Almost like your personal career advisory board kind of thing.
That's right. And I think like when you're earlier in your career, a lot of your peers at your organization can be that for you. But once you're an org leader, it becomes much more difficult to find that internally. You'll need to go outside of your comfort zone and find that externally.
I love that. There is this show that I love on BBC Radio, which is called Desert Island Discs. It's been around for since the late 50s. Basically, the whole concept of the show is going through a number of records the guest has selected, usually 10, and you talk through the stories around why you would bring this particular record on this desert island. So we're going to imagine, bear with me, that you're stranded on a desert island.
Okay.
And I want you to tell me, if you had to choose one book to take with you, what would that book be and why? And then if you could only eat a single dish, right, for, eternity on this desert island, what would that dish be and why?
Okay. I'm going to try to divorce myself from the logistics of the scenario.
Please do.
And
this is not a trick question.
Exactly. It's not a riddle. I mean, I think the book that I would read is The Brothers Karamazov. It's a book I first read in college. We spent 10 weeks reading it just very closely, and I found it at the right moment in my life. But I think it's like the right mixture of sort of realistic about the way that the world works and hopeful about the way that it could work. And I feel like indulging in that despair and risking that hope is probably the right headspace for being deserted on an island in the middle of nowhere. And it's also quite long, so I could probably...
It'll keep you busy for a while.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. What about the dish?
Yeah.
This is one of the most difficult questions ever, which is why I love it.
I think it is. And I think that the answer is like a salmon poke bowl.
Okay.
I think it's complete protein, right? Or a complete meal. You have your rice and you have your protein. I'm assuming I can have whatever, avocado and furikake. Let's not worry about it.
All the ingredients.
Some edamame. But I think there you have, it's like a complete meal. It's pretty healthy. And I mean, it's delicious. It would probably take me a few months before I got sick of it.
Love it.
Maybe a cruise boat would come around by then.
Love it. Thank you so much, Laura.
Thank you, Axel.
For coming on the show. I really loved having you. Thanks for sharing all of this wisdom. And yeah, good luck with everything you're doing at Descript.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure to be here and talk a little bit about all this stuff with you.
Love it. Ever wonder how the best product leaders actually work day to day? Not the polished slides, the real steps, the tools, the messy middle. That's what we dig into on Product in Practice. I sit down with people building the future and we walk through their actual workflows so you can see exactly how to get things done and take those ideas back to your team. First episodes are up now at atlassian.com/Axel. That's AXEL.